Coach. Well, I've forgotten who I am. It's been that long. Liam took over the show literally 2 weeks ago or last week, and I've forgotten my own identity. How are we? We're here for Down Under Sigmar. We're here talking about fuck the meta. That's probably demonetized the channel just by swearing in that first 5 seconds. As always, we are here not only with myself, but we are here with Liam, the Shadow Hammer himself. How are you, Liam, this fine Wednesday?
I am so good. Like, I am still recovering from the weekend. Even though I didn't even play, but I'm still recovering somehow. But yeah,
it was a big weekend.
Yourself?
Massive weekend.
Yeah, just a weekend of, making or ruining people's days. It was great. I loved it.
I like to think the making part. I don't know what you did behind my back. Maybe
it was just some real questions I got asked, and I was like, "It doesn't work like that. I'm really sorry." And you could just see their disappointment. And I was like, "That's all right."
And I know you were sliding into the DMs of a certain person in Nottingham, but we'll keep that to another day.
Yeah.
I'll find out what you were asking. Hopefully they were rules questions, not pictures. But somebody that was at the event, the tournament, Sydney GT, greatest tournament in Australia on that weekend, is Ash McEwan. Nice trophy there, buddy. How are you,
Thanks,
Ash?
Man. Yeah, good, man. Just keeping it here just in case,
Just a constant reminder.
Yeah. I mean, this is my qualification for the show right here. Is meta breaker. So yeah.
So Ash McEwan, I probably should give a formal introduction, and then you can tie up the loose ends. Ash McEwan is a top-tier Australian player, has been playing at least in the Masters level for some time now. You may have seen him on Warhammer Television. He played on stream with his Iron Jaws. Very famous for playing a whole bunch of armies, Nighthorn, Iron Jaws, and most recently for the last maybe 9 months, 6 months, it seems like ages, has been Devoted of Sigmar, which is why you're here, because you are been doing kicking butt, taking names with flagellants and all that good stuff.
Damn straight.
Such an OP army.
I'm totally glad that they got rid of those war altars and those war priests, because they are OP, and luckily they didn't feature any white dwarfs recently because they are broken and busted.
Yeah, luckily Slaanesh is a bit safer now that the Devoted are gone.
Yeah. I know those Slaanesh players are like, whew, thank God the Witch Hunter is now not in the game.
Yep.
And then our other guest, brand new microphone. He's ready to go. He is the lore master himself. He is Dad Hammer, the administrator of literally every single Facebook group ever created for Age of Sigmar. It is Dad Hammer himself. Luke, how are you, buddy?
Tired, as you would expect, with a newborn. But other than that, doing pretty good. Finally getting some hobby time in.
I don't understand that. Isn't it easy to have a kid? Yeah, I can't relate to that whatsoever.
Oh, you guys will regret it one day. Don't.
I imagine those kids are good for like basing your models. Like you just give your child a base and they can put down the sterling mud and dryad bark and, put some flock down and, beautiful bases.
Great for basing Nurgle, maybe.
I mean, we can all thank me when Orion comes back as a model, because I've brought Orion into the world. So,
I
heard kids are really good at basing. Like, they're actually really good at it if you get them to do it for you. If you have a tournament in 2 days, it's really
not
good.
At 1 year old and 3 weeks old.
It's easy. Texture paint, simple.
But the introduction for Luke Stone is not only is he the administrator of a range of the Age of Sigmar groups, Luke is a very narrative-driven player, and most recently he's been running the Scourge Privateers for, at least ran it at CanCon, has been running it for some time now. He is obsessed with those pirate elves, loves the Charybdis, so he's got a very tight relationship with Clint. But you've also been running this army for a while, and I guess the topic of today very much is going to be about people who are running armies that aren't Slaanesh, that aren't Daughters of Cain, that aren't the meta, and really exploring why on earth they do it, and I guess learning the hints, tips, and tricks along the way that you guys have picked up from not running the easy victories that Slaanesh might be providing. Although Liam thinks recently he's created a list that is a hard Slaanesh list. So
It's not hard. It's like the most friendly Slaanesh list you can write.
Is this like your friendly daughters list?
It actually is probably the most friendliest list I've ever written. And that says a lot.
Slaanesh list is like saying there's a friendly shark out there somewhere.
No, but there seriously is a friendly shark out there, and this is the most friendliest Slaanesh list I've ever written. It has 9 fiends. Name a competitive list with 9 fiends.
Yeah, what did you call it? A tactical tactical challenge, or you said this Slaanesh army is
it's a Slaanesh army that doesn't just move forward.
Skaven did pretty well with 9 fiends.
Got a point.
Soft topic.
All right, we'll throw shade on Liam all throughout the episode, as we do every fortnight. But before we get into that, Liam, is there any news, or should we talk about... Actually, there has been some news recently. Twitter has been all angry and ranty and salty most recently for some reason. Why on earth?
Because there's this new... Because GW made this model, right? It's a cool model. I'm not going to lie. It's a really cool model. It's called Celeste, I'm pretty sure. And they've just released a whole bunch of rules on the White Dwarf that comes out this Friday or next Friday or something ridiculous. And yeah, I think it's this Friday. And there's these rules where at the moment Slaanesh is really powerful with their depravity and their summoning. And then everyone's like, oh, this thing gets you 2 depravity for each thing that gets a wound caused or whatever. And everyone is like getting in an all ooh-ha about it. And yeah, it's pretty entertaining. I'm actually laughing with enjoyment about this because I don't know if it's GW's way of saying like we haven't sold many White Dwarfs this year, so we're going to do this, or we haven't really sold much of this model, so we're going to do this, or it's both. But yeah, and it's
got people riled up one way or the other.
Yeah, it's like I'm pretty sure the last time everyone spoke about a White Dwarf thing was about a year ago, so like it's back on like trending. So I myself am like not fussed about it. Like there's some cool battalions where it is heavily based on mortals. So it's pretty much giving a huge buff to Slaves to Darkness, model range that no one ever sees on the tabletop much, let's be honest, except when Hayden runs it now, apparently, up in Queensland. So it's heavily based on mortals. So I'm not fussed about it. Like you don't see me like as a competitive player writing lists based on it because it's based on one model. Like, apparently the rules are if heroes hold even 12 inches of the Celeste model, every time a wound is caused or they cause a wound, it counts as 2 depravity instead of just 1. But the model is like on a 4-up save, 9 wounds. It doesn't have the monster keyword, so he gets lookout, sir.
Well,
but
that's 16 depravity points even if you just kill him first, so that's not bad.
Yeah, you get yourself a harp lady for that, and then it's fine. Like,
so you're saying that's nothing to worry about? We are all
it's nothing. It's
storming the teacup.
It's honestly, there's nothing to worry about, and like it's a 200-point model that you have to build your list around. And for 220, you can get the mirror twin chick that does way better job at what she does. So, yeah, like in honesty, I don't see it being hitting on the top tables or anything. If people are getting on an ooh-ha about it, get better at Warhammer. Anyways. So that's one thing that's happened in news.
I can see Ash's faces cringed up a little bit. Anything you want to add to that before Liam continues?
I think Liam sometimes underestimates how things will have an impact on the meta. I do think in this case he's right. We won't see it too much. But I think when you see it, it will create some feel-bad experiences for the opponents. Not necessarily win games, but just make feel-bads.
But like,
we saw that at Sydney GT. Like Gotrek was, ripping face, taking names, but didn't actually feature in any of the top lists. If we think about it, so there is some feel bad moments and really hard stuff, but it's not like you can't put a strategy in place. Luke, you were going to say?
I think the people's big thing is I don't think people get why Slaanesh got something when we've got other armies that probably needed something more. It's something extra for the army that is obviously already at the top.
And to answer your question, they made a model that no one's bought.
Yeah.
They need to sell a crap ton. They need to sell a crap ton so they can be like, it was worth the investment to get a guy who modeled and sculpted this thing.
Worth noting is
reasoning,
maybe
it does leave a sour taste.
It may be that the reason they've chosen this host to focus on is because they'd started writing the narrative side of it, and then they wrote into that the like the actual match play rules, just because. I mean, I think most of the Age of Sigmar rules that have been going into White Dwarf, or at least the ones for like Shadespire and those things, have been done by John Bracken, I think his name is. So like, yeah, it may not be that it's the main rules writing team that's been focused on this task, but it's just an extra little bonus that someone else has put in.
I just want to quickly say though, it is an awesome model.
Yeah,
it's a cool model. Like I have to say, it's up there. It's one of my favorite models they've released.
Well, I started painting it for the Ever Chosen competition.
And then you realize that you have Cine GT.
Yeah, my focus had to go to terrain, but it's an awesome model. I think, if I think about potentially why they're doing this, yes, absolutely, very much could be trying to spike the sales of Shaleski, or however you pronounce her name, his and her name. Second of all, their name. Yeah, let's do the pronoun. Second of all, you have a lot of people had a lot of feedback, and I know they were quite vocal about what about mortals in Slaanesh, and it's probably one of the only few books that doesn't really acknowledge the mortals across all the Chaos gods. So could be throwing the mortals a little bit of a bone.
It was the first Chaos army that didn't get new mortal units when it got released. Like Khorne got their new range. Zeech got a whole new one. Nurgle got a whole bunch. So Slaanesh got none. So this is probably their way of saying like, hey, here's something for you guys. And all the battalions in their book is demon focused mainly. Like it makes sense for what they've done.
Yeah. But to Luke's point as well, there are people like the Seraphon, there's people like Beastclaw Raiders who are probably throwing their hands up going, what about me? What about me? The spear tip on Slaanesh is already sharp. I don't need an even more sharper tip on my spear because the Beastclaw Raiders are crying for love. And we know there's a book coming pretty soon. There's plenty of armies who are looking for love. But
I think the number of armies looking for love is pretty small these days, though. They've done pretty well with getting everyone up to speed.
And Cities of Sigmar has been tying all those loose ends. Like all those armies that weren't getting love or weren't going to get love, they just got tied in. Even though some armies got axed, but like they've kind of cleaning it all up. And then Iron Jaws and Bone Splitters just got a whole new book.
Yeah, I mean, you can probably argue Seraphon needs an update. You could probably argue that Zench is out of date. You could probably even argue at points that Legions of Nagash, the actual core Legions of Nagash, probably needs a tweak as well.
I reckon those armies that you've been mentioned, I reckon they're all getting their touch-ups next year at the moment, because right now, they did say like they're focusing on destruction last year, so that's why we got Gloom Spite, then we got the Oryx, and then we're going to get the Ogres, right? And then now we got a Death faction coming out. So I reckon all those armies that you've listed, they're getting their love next year, especially Seraphon just got a whole bunch of new rules in their GHB. Like, they're getting their love. Like, anyone who says, oh, I haven't got love, you just got yourself a General's Handbook. And now I'm pretty sure they're in the battle book or the gaming book that they released last week or the week before.
Yeah, they are.
So, like, the number, as Ash said, the number of armies that's not getting love is actually getting smaller. It's right. And, yes, Peter, Beastclaw Raiders are getting love end of this year. So... yeah, it's just one of those things where like all those kind of armies and KO will be getting love next year.
Danny Carroll makes a really good point about KO. So
KO was a huge mistake, but yeah.
Yeah, look, long story short, I think, the general sentiment from the community is, Slaanesh probably didn't need additional love, but nonetheless, it's here to stay. I've already seen some tournament organizers throwing their hands up to say, this is going to be banned, this is going to be banned. I think, let's see the impacts. Is it really as crazy and busted as people think? Or is this just the next storm in the teacup?
I reckon it's a storm in a teacup, but then if you actually give it to like someone who knows what they're doing, then that's when we start seeing issues. But yeah, that's the current news. Like, that's been the news for about 48 hours, I'm pretty sure it's been. Like, the battalions got released while we're at Cine GT, and I had a quick little flick through them, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I tried to write, and the other thing as well is I've tried to write lists to see like what you can fit into kind of this stuff, like with the battalions and everything. You can't fit a lot. It's a very low body count army if you want to use it for its full capabilities.
Typically, body count
Slaanesh. No, but like including like even like, because with the battalions you have to fit in mortals,
Yeah,
That's fine.
Right, like-
Chaos Warriors are 2 wounds.
No, but they don't get depravity for you. I'm talking about their heroes.
Yeah, well,
Right?
yeah.
Okay, I'm talking about the
Yeah.
heroes. Then they're
Yeah.
expensive, but they're low like wound count, right?
Yeah.
While the demons are high wound count, and like it's just one of those things where it's just like you're not getting a lot. So the double depravity thing is mainly just because like their mortals aren't actually that got many wounds. Does that make sense?
Do you think it's going to
Italians-
create? Do you think it's going to create a better experience that should someone go down that route, we're going to see less Keeper of Secrets on the board, which means while they are generating additional depravity.
If you want AOS on easy mode, stick to your Keeper of Secrets 3 list. Like, go for it. I saw how it was on the weekend, and honestly, half those armies made me want to vomit because I saw 3 Keeper of Secrets come down, like they're dead. Then next turn, they just all got summoned back, and they all made their charges, and I just stood there, I'm like, what the hell is the point? Like,
well, I saw a list with this new allegiance that still had 3 Keepers of Secrets in it, plus the Celeste. So if you manage to keep those three Keepers of Secret like wholly within, was it 12 inches of Celeste, then that could get you 96 depravity if you've killed all 3 of them. So could work.
Yeah. But
Joel McGrath in the chat. There's nothing wrong with Slaanesh. Nothing at all.
Move along. Nothing with Slaanesh. Anyway. Don't FAQ them. They are perfectly fine. Everyone look at Andrew Bigwoods.
Yeah. Well, they got beaten by Order. They got beaten by, I heard, Devoted by a very interesting game.
Yep.
Andrew needs to stop winning, or his narrative gamer status is going to get revoked. The amount of things he beats with that Serpentis army.
Who else beat Slaanesh? Smorgan beat Slaanesh with his mixed order randomness 25 drop list.
All right, we're talking about games played. Let's actually now transition. All right, we're going to close off that chapter. Oh, go on, quickly. Go on.
The new Bone Reapers they've been showing off have been pretty cool.
Yep, I mean,
cool Bone Daddies.
There's a picture going around as well with all the models with the base sizes. So looks like a wonderful range.
Was there more new models than that? I didn't see them.
There's more. There's been, because they had a book leak a month and a half ago. So some people have photoshopped in the models that they haven't actually properly released on the community site. So there's actually quite a lot.
Okay.
It's bigger than the Deepkin release by, I think, 1.5 times. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And that's including, like, that's not including Nagash and the Morghast and stuff. Like, there's way more than Deepkin got on their release. It's going to be, I reckon it's going to be like a 3 or 4 week release. So yeah, pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah, so we've had some new death models shown off, and we've seen much more of the range. We've seen the new White Dwarf Slaanesh rules. Joel McGrath saying nothing to worry about, move along. We're starting to talk about games now. So Ash, I know you've recently just played at Sydney GT. Luke, I'll come to you in a second. Love to hear how you're going with what was your highlight from Sydney GT?
Yeah, I mean, well, on topic, I guess, game against Slaanesh in round 5. So I think the thing that I want to pull out in this game was that the summoning mechanic was very strong, but he didn't get a chance to summon anything. So giving him the full 5 turns, if it was not knife to the heart, it would have been very difficult for me to pull that game out. But I managed to, by the end of turn 2, get more models than him on both objectives and finish the game there. So I shut down, I think he had about 40 depravity points in the bag at that point, and I hadn't finished off any heroes yet. Or I'd just finished off 1 Keeper of Secrets. So it could have gotten really nasty very soon, but managed to hold out against that Slaanesh list, thanks to his own cogs that he cast for me to give it my flagellants the extra move they needed to get to the objective. So thanks for that, Mitch. That was really good.
What was my favorite quote again, Anthony, from that game?
Oh yeah.
So Ash is playing literally on the table right next to the TO table, so where Liam and I were.
We're just chatting.
And they're playing, and we're actually not paying attention to the game at all. I think we're on like the Down Under Pairings tournament system, and out of the blue, we're looking at scores or best painted or something. And in the corner of our ear, we hear In the most pleasant way, Ash says, "Can I have a turn now, or can I have a go now?"
Cool. Can I have a turn now?
So clearly we had a whole lot of 2+. You fight last, Ash,
Or 4-ups or whatever.
or 4-up or whatever it was. But it was a very cute, very funny thing that just come out of nowhere. And it wasn't like a toxic kind of way.
It was pretty funny. Like, we just laughed because I was just talking to Anthony saying, like, yeah, this whole activation war thing, there's nothing wrong with it. And then we just hear Ash going, "Can I have a turn now?" I'm like, oh, maybe.
Yeah, that was after the Keeper of Secrets piled in an attack twice, and one of the chariots piled in an attack twice. And I think he had 10 Demonettes attacking, and another chariot on the other side. No, they just attacked once because he ran out of command points at that point. He only got 3 in his first turn. So, yeah.
Oh, just only 3. It's fine.
Yeah.
Luke, what about yourself? How have you had an opportunity to play yet? I know you've put out a heap of videos recently.
Yeah, so I've had a couple of games with a couple of different Cities of Sigmar lists. Bit against, I guess, what the whole show's about, playing Halo Heart. But my privateer list at the moment needs a bit of modification.
I heard chariots are really good.
Oh yeah. They are joke now.
All right, that's like a fortnight or a month's time when we talk about meta armies. We're here to talk non-meta armies, so we'll talk Halo Heart later.
Yeah. But yeah, played a couple of games. That's about it. Being a new dad, I've got a 3-week-old, so it is what it is.
Yeah. Anthony, any games for you?
No games for me, but I have 2 tournaments coming up in November. I've got Runak's team tournament, and I have a one-on-one tournament. So the team tournament is 4 people: Liam, myself, Dan Brewer, and Hayden Walker on a team. Ash, are you on the Pantheon of Filth?
I am on the Pantheon of Filth, yeah.
And you'll be playing in the teams tournament as well. And then later that month, I'll be up in Newcastle playing some tournaments. But I've got a game locked in this Saturday where I get to play with my Cities of Sigmar for the first time ever, and I'm excited.
Sick.
But I'm running Halo Heart, and hashtag I've been a Halo Heart player for a long time because I've got a Hurricanum, I've got a Luminarch. I was running them in 2017 and before that, so go away, leave me alone. I've always played Halo Heart in some form.
That's a lie, but okay.
It's true. Go check out. Go check out every. Go look at my RCGT list from 2019. It was a Hurricanum, Luminarch, the Carmine Dragon, which is a wizard dragon from the city of Nuln. I had a Phoenix in there. Here's a very magic orientated free people list. So go away. Triggered.
Where's that Carmine Dragon now, Anthony?
Yeah, where is that Carmine Dragon?
I would love it still to be on the table, even if it was an ally that the old Firestorm rules used to allow you to bring in anything that wasn't outside of the city as an ally, and I would love to take that in a heartbeat. But unfortunately, the Carmine Dragon, much like the rest of the Forge World Age of Sigmar models, are being cut.
Aww.
At least in order, anyway.
Yeah. That's cool. Excited for your game? You excited? You're excited for Runax? You feeling like you're ready?
Yeah, totally.
That's a no.
Well. I'm hoping that Gabe show. Look, I'm not going to talk about this because look, Gabe's got some rules in that I'm hoping that he's very kind with the FAQ. So at the moment, we have to submit our lists prior to the FAQ. So I'm a bit concerned about submitting a Halo Heart list that potentially the strongest city with an FAQ coming, and I have to wear the FAQ regardless of what happens. So I'm hoping common sense prevails, and I get to, I don't know, do something, submit a list later or tweak it when the FAQ comes out, but let's see.
Yeah, sick.
Cool. And Liam, yourself?
I played a fair few games. I had a game with Matt Tyrrell, which I recorded for my channel on Friday when he arrived for Cine GT, with my Sylvaneth Heartwood list, which I'm currently on a 90% win rate with at the moment, because yes, I am keeping track on it, because everyone's saying that Sylvaneth is not competitive, and I was like, hold my beer. Ash has played this game list before.
Yeah.
I was pretty lucky. I'm not going to lie in our game with me and Ash. Straight up, Durfee should have died. But
you were pretty silly to start with, and then you were pretty lucky, which made it okay. So
yeah, after Ash's game, I've learned this tactic is put Durfee in the Wildwoods because he will get shot. And I'm like, okay, cool.
If you let me see Deathio, I'm going to take him down.
Yeah, so I was just like, cool, that's not happening again. But so I've had a practice game beat Matt. I'm not going to actually, you know what? No, all I'm going to say is that me and Matt's game was such a close game to record, to the point where we forgot to record some bits because it was so tight. Like, it was ridiculous. But yeah, I've had a couple of games and with Sylvaneth, and it's been great. I love it. The book is awesome. Kernov meta is definitely a thing. Like,
They're
it
back.
is. But then they're back. But at the moment, I kind of want to run Dreadwood soon. Like, Dreadwood has so much tools in it. Like, I wrote a Dreadwood list with no big trees, like no tree lords. And it's just got the Arch Rev, 2 Branch Raves, 30 Dryads, 10 Dryads, 6 Kernov Hunters with Scythe, 6 Kernov Hunters with Swords, Spite Swarm Hive, and with a Forest Folk Battalion and a Border Command Point, I'm pretty sure. So all I'm doing is teleporting shenanigans and telling my opponent that all I need to do is make 6-inch charges. And no, I'm not telling you all my secrets.
You basically are. But let's save the rest for Runax. And let's get into the topic of the week. What do you reckon? And our a whole bunch of chats going on, which is awesome. Big shout to Beth Bigwood, who, God love her, Go Trek, took through 3 of her Great Unclean Ones, the Poxbringer and 20 Plague Bearers in a single game. So, credit to you for sticking through. And that's really tough. It's a lot of points.
Godric had a field day on the weekend.
He did. I want to give a quick shout out to all of the Patreons who have really helped this channel pay for the bills, like this particular streaming service. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this is actually a subscription model that I've got to pay for this software, and I think it is pretty neat. So thank you for everyone who is contributing and helping us kick some serious butt. A couple of events that are coming up in the next couple of months. You've just heard me talk about Runax. We talk about Castle Assault. We've got the Masters Invitational only coming up at the end of November. Got HeroCon coming up in December, the first week. And then finally, the mother of all events, which is CanCon Call to Glory, which is 240 players. Sold that event. Took just over 12 hours to sell out. Which is pretty phenomenal considering ticket sales started at midnight and the website crashed.
3 times.
Essentially crashed for like 6 hours. So the fact that we sold out 240 tickets in essentially 12 hours is pretty awesome. And some fresh content that's just come out that we've had some great podcasts come out. So we've had Heralds of War put out a particular podcast about the charity army that they'll be raffling off at CanCon. Beautiful Nurgle army that came second. It came second at Sydney GT for Best Painted. Mortally Wounded and Notorious AOS have put out some pretty cool podcasts. Liam, you've put out a battle rep recently. Failed Charges uploaded their Toowoomba Open coverage, which was amazing. I know Doom and Darkness and Measure Gaming have pumped out a whole bunch of bat reps and some reviews around the Orc War Clans. Spoiler, I'm going to be recording something with him on the cities, which is going to be pretty cool. Luke, you've done Cinderfall Gaming, a whole bunch of stuff, especially around the narrative, which has been pretty cool. And there's so much more going on. Australia has focused a heap on Mr. Mephisto's channel. I think myself, Doom, Luke, yourself, Christian Ware, there's a whole bunch of Aussies. So check out Mr. Mephisto on Twitch and his podcast. And finally, Runax has put out a pretty cool blog. Plastic Crack, our friend Pete, has been putting out some pretty cool blogs, and The Dwellers Below has got a review from our friend Randy from Sydney GT. So let's see how his experience was. That's a pretty solid list for people who are putting out content.
So much content. Hashtag content creator.
Hashtag content creator. Speaking of that, James Mabry is essentially the official AOS influencer after winning that award and that trophy at my event. So he is now the influencer.
Oh yeah. Cool. That's a lot of content.
There's a lot of content. So obviously, hopefully you stay along and you enjoy this and then you watch the rest later. But let's get into the topic of the week. That is, topic of the fortnight, actually. So the reason we have Ash and Luke, not only are they handsome, fine gentlemen, wonderful players, beautiful painters, but the topic of the week very much is focused around the meta. Now, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people being talking about the meta, whether it's, Slaanesh being really strong. For the last 12 to 18 months, we've heard a lot about Daughters of Cain. We've had, Grimghast Reapers featuring in Legions of Nagash. We've had Skaven. We've had, throughout the year, we've had different flavors of the month. Some have lasted longer than others. But what we don't hear a lot about is the armies that are hashtag non-meta. The armies like the Scourge Privateers, the Darkling Covens, the Free People, the Daughters of Cain, the Daughters of Cain, bloody Daughters of Cain.
I was going to say, dude.
The Devoted of Sigmar. I'm looking at Ash when I say that. Now there's a D word coming out.
That, yeah.
But we have all of this stuff. Ever Chosen. Like who on earth is talking about Ever Chosen? These armies, Beastclaw Raiders, the KOs, the Kharadron Overlords, all of these armies are wonderful armies. They're beautiful armies. They've got a lot of legs, but unfortunately, no one's talking about them. Now, obviously, at tournaments when armies are doing really good, people are drawn to the armies that are easier, stronger, whatever it might be. But there's a little space on the internet, a little space on the hobby table for your non-meta armies. And I wanted to talk to Luke. I want to talk to Ash. And I want to find out what drives them, what motivates them, what gets you to pick up a Devoted of Sigmar army instead of that third Keeper of Secrets or that first Keeper of Secrets. It starts that hobby addiction around depravity. So, guys, you want to get into the topic?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So maybe for someone who's listening and watching this, and this is the first time they've heard of this word, the meta, maybe we'll define it first. I might throw this one over to Ash or Liam or Luke. Who wants to take a stab on what is a meta army, or what is the meta?
I'll have a go at it.
Awesome.
So the meta is generally the amount of armies that you see, or the variation of armies that you see crop up across games of Age of Sigmar. And those that are considered on meta would be those that have a high percentage of play across games. So you're likely to play it at a tournament, like there's a high chance you're going to get it. And those considered off meta, you're very unlikely to see at a tournament or at an event or even at games in general. That's pretty much the general basis of what the meta is. And the meta is that sort of level of being, is there lots or is there less?
Yeah, and that's something else with that as well, is that it's like the definition I think it came from was the most efficient tools available, or the most effective tools available. So generally that used to be applied to a specific army and you would choose the most efficient tools from that army. But now it's become, because every army has a lot of tools, it's become which armies are the ones that you see more often. And it's become this sort of bigger conversation about the entire scene of what you see at tournaments.
Yeah. Liam, anything you'd want to add to that?
My best summary of it is pretty much it's like a percentage of chance of seeing what you're going to see at a tournament. For example, last year I joked around saying that the meta was Grimghast Reapers or Death of Grimghast Reapers, and I made a hilarious stat saying that there was this amount of Grimghast Reapers and only this many in actual Nighthaunt. And so it was just one of those things where I was just saying like the current meta in Australia is literally going to see a lot of like pretty much saying like you're going to see Grimghast Reapers, find a way to counter it. And like so for currently, and then like to be off meta is a way where you're saying like, oh, you're not running an army or running a mechanic that is currently happening. So at the moment we have activation wars for the past 2 or 3 months. Would you say, guys, activation wars is the thing still? Yeah, cool, awesome. So pretty much like, and if you're running something that's like off meta, you're running something that's not actually got anything to do with the activation wars, or you have something that's like going to counter it. So for example, with activation wars, to counter it, it's the 6-inch pile-in is pretty much the best way to counter it. So it's stuff like that.
Or shooting.
Or shooting. Like last year we had shooting was a thing where we saw Kharadron Overlords, we saw the Free Guild, we saw Vanguard, we saw the Aether Wing at one point last year, like late last year.
Disciples of Zinch as well, considered a shooting army.
Well, Skyfire, it's not really a shooting unit, they're more of a combat unit, but also has shooting. But yeah, we saw stuff like that. So the meta changes depending on where you are. Like I know that Australia, everyone says that our meta is weird and we doesn't make any sense. Like Rob Symes still does not understand what we do. I'm pretty sure he was quite shocked that Matt won CanCon. He goes, corn's not a thing. So yeah, so like it all depends. Like
it's probably worth calling out that there are different metas, right? So myself and my little games club, like the mates that I play with, that's a meta. Now, my friends could, maybe they don't buy armies very often, and they really love the models that they've always bought. So in my local meta, I'm playing with people with Zench and Beastclaw Raiders, and I'm playing a very old style, like skeletons and zombie type death army. That's my local meta. I go to a tournament, maybe it's in Sydney. Now, in Sydney, there might be more Daughters of Cain armies. And in my local scene, there is no Daughters of Cain players. So there's a different meta there. Then as you go up to Australia, you might start seeing that when all the different communities come together, that is a different meta in itself. So the meta can be more than one thing. So to be meta would be around the popularity. I think you guys have really called this out. Things that are attacking more than once in combat. Could be very magic orientated. I think last year's General's Handbook had scenarios that were very much rewarding people who had an artifact of power, very wizard orientated. So that was the meta. Now that some of those rules have changed in the latest edition of the General's Handbook, we're not seeing that as popular. Now,
like last year we had a situation where we had like horde armies was a thing. Like everyone ran like big boss and stuff. And then what you saw everywhere was a Gaunt Summoner. Like you just saw that everywhere because that was the counter to horde armies because they were winning. So yeah, meta. So yeah, so pretty much the best way to summarize is the meta is the highest percentage of what you're seeing in your games or what you're going to see in your games at an area. Like at the moment, for what I know, is that the meta could change in the next 3 months after an FAQ. That's coming out in January before CanCon. Because
we'll get 2 FAQs out within the week now, right? With the Cities of Sigmar and
Cities of Sigmar and Oryx, and then we also got the half annual, so like every 6 month FAQ and point changes from the GHB.
Yep.
So because at the current moment, our game is now being updated every 6 months, which they've announced. So yeah, and like
every new release impacts the meta in some way. So Craig Anderson here, for a really good point. He said secret Gotrek meta. Now that model didn't come with a battle tome, but that changed things. When Forbidden Power come out, that changed things. Now, not always do we adapt and we take up the meta or we go with the change, but all of these little drops, the new Death Army, the new Ogre book, potentially if Games Workshop release a Christmas box set, and who knows what's in it, that might spike more of those armies in the scene that weren't there currently. So that's a bit of a baseline of what we're talking about here is the meta, that popularity or that most common element of a game, and some things to consider as you're building. But Ash, you're a Devoted of Sigmar. Luke, you've been playing Scourge Privateers for a long time now. Ash, I'll start with yourself. Can you tell me a little bit about your army, your Devoted of Sigmar, and tell me about this theme that you've created?
Sure, yeah. I mean, so it first all sort of started with the initial book that released with the Zinch book. So there was a novel that was released. I think it was called City of Secrets.
The Cities
of Secrets.
Yeah, and the main characters in that were a witch hunter and a dwarden, and that was sort of the first look at the nitty gritty side of the Cities of Sigmar and like on the ground with the humans, and that sort of like sparked the interest. And since then, there's been a lot of novels that Black Library have put out that have really focused in on particularly the Order of Azir, and that is the Devoted of Sigmar allegiance. And so that sort of sparked my interest. And for a while, I've been looking at the War Scrolls, and for 2 years, I've said that Devoted of Sigmar are a thing, but just no one wanted to paint that many flagellants to get the army on the table. And then we saw the Daughters of Cain come out, and that played very similarly.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. We actually had a phone call about 18 months, 2 years ago. I think I was boarding a flight to Vietnam. I think my flight for Jetstar was delayed and I was in the line. And we are talking about Devoted of Sigmar. And I've got the army. You just had the balls to actually paint it and play with it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, about 18 months ago, I started working on the army and just like chipping away at it here and there in between the other projects. And then towards the beginning of this year, after CanCon, where I'd finished my Nighthorn army, was where I really like knuckled down and got the army painted. And it took a good 6 months to get the full 145 duelants painted, along with the heroes that go with it. But yeah, like now that it's done and I've put it on the table, it's sort of a little bit of approval that it actually did work. I was right. So anyone that thought I was wrong.
And there's a trophy there to prove it. You came fourth at Sydney GT, a 2,500 point event. So it just shows you that a non-meta army can still be powerful, can still surprise your opponents. It still has legs. It doesn't mean that just because they're not featured in the top 10, that doesn't mean they'll ever not feature. So well done to you, Ash. Luke, you have been running Scourge Privateers now, our seafaring piratey elves, for a good 6 or 12 months. I know we played together at CanCon. I'm sure you've been playing with it now until the Cities of Sigmar. What got you into Scourge?
Well, funnily enough, the exact same book that Ash is talking about, City of Secrets. Got hooked on the character Erica Zenth from the novel, who's a Scourge Privateer that sort of works with Hannah Toll. She has her own agenda, but the idea of like these pirating mercenaries that are good guys, but they're as good as, Daughters of Cain or Ideneth are in that aspect. And around the time when I started at LLV, had just started doing his stats. And there was sort of this inclination to go, I'm going to make my own stat in that. I'm going to do something that no one else has done. I'm going to make you make stats just for me.
Be the best in the world.
Yeah, I'm both the best and worst Scourge Privateers player in the world.
I think you were the first who came up. There was no Scourge Privateer stat. And I guess by the sound of it, it was a challenge.
Yep. And kept my positive win rate in tournaments for the past almost 18 months now.
What did happen to that stat show?
I don't know. I just looked it up, and I think the last update was in June. So for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, the Honest Wargamer for at least 12 months, if not longer, was running
it was like a year and a half.
A weekly update of all of the top winning armies from each of the tournaments across the world, and then could break it down into a win-loss percentage between the armies. So you could kind of start seeing, as the meta changes, the rise of the Daughters of Cain at the time, and the decline of, say, the Beastclaw Raiders. And then you started seeing some really interesting things where Stormcast might increase or decrease, but that's kind of a nice way to kind of define the meta as well, seeing that some armies had a crazy win percentage. I think, some armies were at 80%. So
88% win rate was Daughters of Cain. So yeah. Yeah, it feels like that one book actually spiked both of you guys. I've read that book and it's pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
It's a really good book.
Yeah. Anything by Nick Horth in Age of Sigmar is fantastic.
Super Keen's asked, do fake armies count as off meta? I'm assuming you are talking either about the Tomb Kings, Bretonnia. In that case, if you're running around with Tomb Kings, it is absolutely off meta. Those armies will surprise your opponent. They're not going to know the rules. Absolutely, they are not meta. Although Dan Brewer, I think, went 5-0 at my event. So maybe
5-0. He went 5-0 and he dropped 2 tertiaries. That's it.
There you go. Oh, Chorfs, sorry. The Chorfs, the Chaos Dwarves. Yes, absolutely. I know the Chaos Dwarves. So yes, absolutely. Like I probably played Chaos Dwarves once a year, if that. So another one of those armies that are off meta.
Very cool.
So it sounds like you guys have all started with a narrative. You guys found a story, you found a picture, and that really inspired you both.
Yeah, and that's been the case with all of the armies that I've chosen really up until this point, was that whether it's been from the stories in the battle tome or in the core book, that's sort of what spurred me into collecting the army as a whole, because I'll buy every battle tome that comes out, and just to keep on top of the rules and on top of the meta, I guess. But yeah, when the narrative is really solid, or like there's something in it that triggers with something that I'm excited about doing, that's where it then turns into a hobby project for me.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Like the narrative, or not necessarily the narrative in general, but models have to speak to me to be able to do something. And definitely the narrative, if the narrative is the next part, and then like there's always going to be like the little bit of like, can I actually play this as an army, is always going to be that little thing. You don't want to go collect an army of Shadow Blades.
I really wanted to for a long time.
Saying that, I do own 2,000 points of Shadow Blades.
Well, if you want to sell it, let me know.
They're good now though, because Shadow Warriors are Shadow Blades, so that's a good army now.
Yeah, that's true.
So why, I guess, while Liam thinks up a question, I'm sure he's ready to jump in, firing. Why would somebody, and I guess, speaking on behalf of yourself or maybe other people around you, why would somebody forego buying a start collecting box? And I think that's a barrier to entry, right? There are so many high value, low cost options like the Stormcast, like Slaanesh, that you can get all these great stuff that's easy to buy at your local Games Workshop. And what you guys are doing essentially is you're walking in and you have to order in advance. You very rarely can pick a box up off the shelf. There's not that many models available. Hell, Devoted of Sigmar, what have you got? You had at the time, 5 models? Flagellant, War Altar, Witch Priest, Warrior, Witch Hunter, Warrior Priest. So you had 4
Excelsior War Priest.
Excelsior. So you had 5 War Scroll options, yet you have collected 2,000 points. And I'm sure, Dadama, you're about that 5 or 6 as well. Could you have Fleet Master, Chariot, your Shooty Elves,
and
Charybdis? Okay.
That's all they need.
So why did you forego the box sets, the discount values, the easy to builds? Why did you forego all of this stuff and run with a narrative, or run with something that's just not popular?
Well, for starters, they're actually not quite as expensive. A lot of the old world armies are still like prices from back in the day. So things like box of Scourge Privateers are still only $40. That might sound like a lot for someone not listening from Australia, but in Australia, that's a really cheap box.
Like 20 quid.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's a cheap box, and like my characters are still 22. Even the Charybdis is only like $86, which is really cheap for a monster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, perfect example, right? The Free Guild Griffin is under $100, dollar dues. Compare that to something of similar value. Let's say the Mangler Squig that came out only the start of the year. That's $150 dues. So straight off the bat, it's a saving there for essentially a model of similar size.
Yeah, and most of the time, quality. A lot of the kits that are around nowadays are still like pretty late fantasy. Like I think the actual Scourge Privateers I own are now the oldest kit and currently available.
They're pretty cool still.
That'd be close, yeah.
Dryads might have them.
True.
Andrew Bigwood makes a really good comment here as well. He says, the uniqueness and the modeling opportunities. Ash, did you find that as you were going through your Devoted?
Well, so modeling isn't necessarily one of the parts of the hobby that I really enjoy. So I generally just build the models as they are in the kit. But like with the Flagellants kit, there's some crazy number of combinations that you can get. I think it's over 3,000 different combinations of like model that you can build out of that kit, which is just 10 bodies. So it's not necessarily a modeling opportunity for me, but it was more that I can use the kit and I can get enough variation within the army that it still feels like each individual model is an individual guy. And yeah, you can sort of take it from there. And some of the heroes like the War Altar, I just love the kit. I didn't feel like I needed to change that at all. I just used the 2 different versions of it that you can build out of the same box. So there's the version with flags and the Volkmar the Grim old model on the top, and you can do the other Warrior Priest as well. So yeah, for me it was not necessarily for the modeling opportunity, but just because I love the models and because the kits are cool.
Yeah, I'll add to that like a little bit. You're saying like about the multiple different options. You don't need to model a lot of the older kits more because they're not such dynamic poses like we have the more modern models where you forego, I guess, a little bit of the customization for a more open posed and free flowing model. You've got a lot of options. Like I still have like heaps and heaps of privateer bits left over because I've got a multi-part kit that's actually like, legs, torso, 2 arms, and I've got every model could have a different set of arms and head. I'm pretty sure it's the same for your flagellants as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think same idea. I think the legs and body there's a single piece, but you've got 10 different versions of that, and then you can throw on the arms and the heads as you will. And there's heaps of extra customization bits in the box as well. So there's little little torches and little candles and like little Sigmarite icons and things like that as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there just within the kit itself to build it how you want to.
Yeah.
Sick. Just one thing as well to point out. You guys are talking about heaps about like order units as well. Like what would be like an off meta unit or like army that would be outside of the Grand Alliance order?
Gutbusters at the moment would probably be first on my pick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else? Just for like our listeners or people who are watching who are thinking like, oh, it sounds like it's just order that's off the meta. Like,
well,
what else is there?
Shout out to Deke Johnson with his vampire army is very off meta. Yes, the Legions of Nagash you see all the time, but you never see people playing just the vampires, the Soulblight side.
Yeah, absolutely. Deke's been running Soulblight for a long time. Andrew Bigwood for CanCon's running the Horde.
Yeah, that's another good shout. You could even argue like potentially Nurgle is like off meta at the moment. It's not that frequent a thing to see.
It was in meta for a little while.
It was most certainly, but at the moment it probably is off meta compared to like Horn and Slaanesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's again, so like for example, you mentioned Gutbusters and you guys have mentioned Soulblight and stuff. But like those are armies that like haven't been touched as well, like model wise for 15 years plus, would you say?
Maybe not
like I said,
that
I
long,
think the oldest.
What's the oldest kid in Gutbusters?
Earlier than Dryads. Dryads, I'm pretty sure at 06 because I know the Wood Elf release because it was the year the World Cup happened. So and I got that army. So they're the current oldest kit, unless the Privateers are older, but I'm pretty sure they're 07 6th edition Dark Elves.
Yeah.
Cameron, I would absolutely say Seraphon is off meta. They're certainly not showing up very often, if any, at some events. There's things, again, and I think, I can't remember who said it, Ever Chosen is another one. Off meta as well can be not even just armies, it could be just particular models. So I know James Mabry and another friend of mine, Dave McElroy, runs big blocks of 60 zombies. Now, how often do people in the chat, or players who are listening to this, how often do you see those big blocks of zombies anymore? Even from a free people perspective, it's almost like every time people build swords and shields for their free guild guard. But back in the day, it was all about the halberdiers. How often do you see halberdiers and spears? Looks like, Luke, you've got some zombies.
Yeah, I have everything in this room.
A bit of everything.
So do you have your own GW store like in your house? Is that what I'm hearing?
Sorry, what's your address again?
Yeah, he
Luke?
does.
Maybe.
Yeah, he does.
But KO is another example. It's very, very rare that you see them on the board.
You can throw in a few more of those more recent releases. So things like even Beasts of Chaos you don't see too often. The Night Haunt you don't see that often. Things like
wait. You see Night Haunt, but it's not in Night Haunt.
You don't see Nighthorn Allegiance very often.
Yeah, don't see
Things
Nighthorn
like
Allegiance very often.
similar
Joel
idea.
makes a
Joel
good
McGrath
point, though.
mentioned that you can take Stormcast with all the new cast stuff, but if you take things like Dracoths, and some of the old like Liberators, you don't see that stuff very often. That counts as off meta as well.
See,
and that's a really good comment. I'm not going to try to pronounce that because I'll butcher that unless you guys want to tackle that.
Mythlinfa.
Right, Seraphon's situation will change as GW eventually starts to completely delete the fine cast. Or they just might recast them to plastic. Yeah,
that's a really good point. The cycle for meta does change. So there are peaks and troughs. There was a time where Zench was primarily the only chaos you saw on the table. Now Zench is pretty rare to see. So that cycle does change very frequently. Just
one thing for Joel's comment, some people would for example, right, would see Ash's list and be like, that looks like shit.
So for the people who are going to listen to this later as a podcast, Liam, I'll just call out Joel's comment. So Joel McGrath has said, it's important to note that there are differences between off-meta armies and armies that are just garbage in the current meta. Sorry, continue.
Right. For example, right, if I didn't know Ash, right, and I read Ash's list from Sydney GT, I'd be like, this is the most garbage list ever. If I didn't know Ash, I would probably be like, this guy's coming from the old world and he's just bringing his stuff over to AOS, right, ever. Because in me, I was just I have no idea what it does. But then you watch it play and you go, actually, no, this is amazing. This is what it's supposed to do. And then the other thing as well is there's some armies as well where just their model range is so small that you can't do much with it. For example, Shadowblades before Cities of Sigmar had 2 units.
Well, the Firebellies had 1.
And Firebellies had 1 . And Gutbusters didn't have.
I tried to build a Collegiate Arcane army. It was actually.
I thought you were going to say you were going to build a Firebellies army. I was like, what the hell are you going to do?
I have a Lion Rangers army.
I tried to build a Collegiate Arcane army. I really did.
I remember.
I tried so hard, and I'm like, how do I get Battle Line in this army? And I tried everything. I even got a Forge World Destruction Fire Elemental that I worked out a way to bring into my Magic army. Other than one little small nuance at the time, but I had no battle line. So there was, so
it's just I wouldn't say that things are garbage. Every single unit's rules have been again, can we bring up Joel's comment?
That's the new one.
He says BCO would be considered off meta, but in reality it's garbage in any meta outside a casual pickup game. I literally saw Beastclaw Raiders smash people's face 2 or 3 games on the weekend. This guy literally, I forgot his name. He's a Damien, I think it was.
Damien Newsom?
Yeah, Damien rocked up with his Beastclaw Raiders and he just went full on, went in, and his opponent didn't leave the deployment zone for 3 turns and tabled him.
Yeah.
It's just those things where those armies are good. And if the people know what they're doing, they'll be good. Matt Campbell. Let's bring up Matt Campbell. He ran Beastclaw Raiders as a joke at a team event. Was it 2 years ago, Ash?
Yeah.
And he went 4-0, I'm pretty sure. And the only loss that he went was with me with my Flesh Eaters back in the day. So, every army can be doing well if the general knows what the hell they're doing. But it's a great thing. But it's also and off meta. So, anything that's off meta, you might be thinking, their rules are garbage. Honestly, pick it up. If you like the models, pick it up and just practice. I can't emphasize the word practice when it comes to this game. Ash practice heaps with Devoted.
So that might be a really good point just to call out for a second. So when you're starting off this, quote unquote non-meta army, Luke, Ash, is it fair to assume that when you picked up these armies and you started them, you weren't looking at this battle tome or you weren't looking at your war scrolls thinking, I'm going to go 5-0 or 6-0 at a tournament? Was that your primary motivation when you picked up the Scourge Privateers, Luke?
Oh, certainly not. I might have yelled it out a lot in a joking fashion, but it most certainly wasn't.
In every single stream in the history of the world while you played Scourge.
Yeah, fight me.
He went like this. He goes, I'm going to beat the coach at CanCon.
He did. He did beat me.
And he did.
Shame for my family. I had a new battle tome.
I have not lost a grudge match in any game I have played with Scourge Privateers. Anyone who's accepted the challenge has lost in a grudge match.
And they're tough. But the point is that you didn't get into this army because you're looking there going, there's some unlocked filth here that I'm going to go 5-0. That wasn't your primary motivator. winning
No.
games is certainly your secondary, but it was the story that you read. It was the modeling opportunities. It was the uniqueness of, even when I played Free People in 2017, people were like, "Oh, I don't get to play this army very often." It was a new experience for my opponent. They had genuine questions and curiosity of how my army played. 99% of the time, people were really excited to play the Free People. There's like, I've never played the Free People before, as opposed to going to a tournament where you play the third Legions of Nagash army with a block of 30 to 60 Grimghast Reapers, and you're like, oh, another one.
Don't get me started.
but you lose the excitement, and that's the challenge when you go with a meta army. You run a Slaanesh, you can be one of the many Slaaneshes, and you get just bundled into the group.
Yeah, you become a statistic rather than your own gamer.
Yeah, and I mean, the perfect example, CanCon last year, I played games, 2 to 5, all Legions of Nagash, and they were all Zombie Dragon, Ethereal Amulet, all 30 Grimghast Reapers, all Necromancer next to them, all Arcane.
Yeah. And you see the combinations before, but then you see the likes of Craig where it's like, I'm running Archaon with, 3 or 4 units of Varangard. It's like, wow, I've never played Varangard before. This is a really cool experience. I'm so excited. I'm genuinely curious to play. So the play experience with a non-meta army, I love playing Damien with his Beastclaw Raiders, as opposed to if I play someone with, Slaanesh for the third time in a row. And I'm giving Slaanesh a pretty bad rep, but I'm calling it out because they are.
It's not just you. It's just the whole community.
They are the meta army right now. You can go to a tournament and play them twice, 3 times out of 5 games. Yeah.
People were happy to play like my privateers at any event.
No one ever complained about playing Nighthaunt or Devoted of Sigmar. Well, people complained about my Zinch, but that was a different story.
But if you picked up your Zinch today, do you think you'd have the same experience as you did, say, 2 years ago when it was all about the Gaunt Summoner? It was about the magical supremacy.
If he's playing Change Host, yes.
I have never played Change Host, actually. I've never played the Demons. It's always been Arcanites. And I'll tell you in 2 weeks how people feel about it, because I'll be taking it to Runax.
I can happily say when we played, I remembered very quickly that there's no point in casting spells against Zinch. There is no point. It was literally just like, oh yeah, you're gonna cast any spells? There's no freaking point. You are going to dispel everything.
Ash, let's play soon with my 11 caster Hello Heart list.
You won't be casting a spell, Anthony. I'm straight up going to tell you, you're not going to cast a spell.
Can they stop spells cast on a 21?
Yes. I don't think so.
Because your averaging cast is like 16, 17 with them.
Yeah, it's pretty hard.
What, Hello Heart?
Yeah,
you can get quite easily to average 16, 17.
Like a plus 10. It's
the sorceress can get up to plus 23. Can get a 23 as her maximum cast.
It's fine.
Yeah, Scourge of Sigmar was perfectly fine. Don't worry. Anyways,
that's a show in like 2 to 4 weeks' time where we'll talk about the meta and building for the meta.
We'll see if they survive the
FAQ.
Yeah.
They probably might need to make a new rule saying the maximum cast you could ever make is 12. But yeah, so because the thing I just want to state when we were talking about armies and stuff, it's every army has a fairly decent war scroll. I remember when I was looking at Ash was doing Wanderers. You were starting a Wanderers army back in the day. And then no one ever plays them. And then when you start seeing them play, holy crap, this is a shock. Matt Gammy.
Matt Gammy was doing it, and he did very well with it.
4-1, I'm pretty sure, at some places in Queensland.
Dave Kerr, I think, won a pretty big. I think it was one of the Briz Hammers with Bone Splitters at the time, which weren't that popular.
Yeah,
I know he's currently running around with a Darkling Coven army. So
plus Gotrek, plus Gotrek. Can't forget Gotrek. He's in that list.
He'd built most of that army before GoTrack came out, though, so give him credit where it's due.
I'll give him credit. Darkling Covens is a cool army, and again, there's just those things where, and most of these armies that we're mentioning, they actually have a pretty good ally pool with new model ranges. For example, Deepkin can be in all these elves that we're mentioning and stuff. So there is definitely legs in all these armies that we're mentioning, which is off meta. But you can bring in units from the on-meta to that army.
Yeah, Paul
Yeah,
Grix doing
certainly.
this with Hawk Raid agents as well is another perfect example. So I think we talked a little bit about meta and kind of how we got into it. I think one of the big questions that I want to ask you both is if I was starting an army, there's so many great resources available to me. If I was starting, let's say, a Blades of Corn army, I could probably find battle reports on YouTube. I could probably find people doing list reviews or even tournament winning lists. I could find podcasts talking about the book, and to get into this game, it'd be very easy. But if I was starting up the Scourge Privateers, the Beastclaw Raiders, the Disciples of Zench, these resources are pretty limited to none. So I guess, how can I improve my performance? How what tools or resources or communities are available to me if I'm playing one of these non-meta armies like Devoted, like Scourge Privateers, like Beastclaw Raiders?
Well, I'll start with, yes, I am the man that runs all the Facebook groups, and there's certainly a way. There's a reason why I started up the Scourge Privateer Facebook group, the Dark and Covens one. I own all those armies, and it was just like, I want to get those couple of hundred people that play them together, and then it's not as easy to get together. Like, say, the Iron Jaws group has got 3,000 members. You're just trying to get these 200 dudes together, these little pieces of around the world, and you can start talking.
200 plus
some people.
200 plus drunk Liam who thought that running a Dark and Covens army was a good idea.
The Dark and Covens, I think, is like 400, 500 now. It's a big model range. But yeah, just getting these little factions, like their own little piece in the world where people can come together and talk about them, was like sort of a start what I did.
Yeah, and along the same vein, there's a lot of WhatsApp groups that you can join to get into that stuff as well. Even just something that I found is that whenever I'm posting something onto Twitter, I'll just put the hashtag with the army that I'm working on, and that'll connect you with other people that are looking into that army as well. So I've met up with one of the guys over in Scotland that's been doing really well with Devoted of Sigmar as well, and Simon from the UK as well that's been doing Devoted of Sigmar for a little while. So like the three of us are like the bros that were on the Devoted of Sigmar, and we've been like sort of throwing lists around with each other, and it's really cool.
And I found that correct me if I'm wrong, generals that play these types of armies are pretty generous with their time. I remember, I think, was it Mick Wendell who won a tournament, maybe it was 5-0, or he won a tournament with Gutbusters Allegiance, and people were just like, oh my God, how did you do this? And he was just super informative. He shared his list. He talked through how and why and what he did, because he wants other Gutbusters players to be as successful as he was. And I find, while it's a smaller pool of community, they're a lot tighter. Ash, you've just called it out. That's a really good example.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. You want, if you are going to play one of these armies, be open and like try and give your success, because then you'll get more people onto your cause. If you, like, it's what I tried to do with the Privateers. I've got more people, like the Privateers group's now gone from when I first started playing with them, it was like 30 members. It's now almost 300 in the space of a year.
Now,
so we've got, and people are actually posting like full armies of Privateers now, which is great.
So could I ask this question as well, since about getting into armies and stuff? Since like most of these armies that you guys are like run and stuff is like a hobby aspect and stuff, but did you guys ever, I know Ash has, but did you ever run armies where they were like on meta beforehand? Like, do you feel like it's a good idea to like play with an army? I wouldn't say if it's like on easy mode, but it's like very more supported in the game to get an understanding of like tactics and gameplay, and then like kind of move on to the off meta stuff?
I can see the argument for that. But for me, it was actually a little bit of the opposite situation, where playing the army that was on meta was actually a more negative experience than playing an off meta army. So when I was playing my Disciples of Zench, I never played the change host or the horrific units of 27 Skyfires, but it always became that conversation at the start of the game, like, oh, you're playing Zench, oh, you're playing Zench, like.
Well, before you played Zench, you played Gordrak Iron Jaws, which never existed. Like, that was off meta. Like, before then, like Iron Jaws were in meta. Like, Destruction was super strong. Like, we can all say that, but Destruction was really strong when you played Iron Jaws.
Yeah.
It was like it was like, oh, you guys move how many inches? Oh, I move like pretty much 12 inches. Then I get to charge you. Then I smash your face, and then you concede. So you did run an army where it was like kind of like off meta, but was also on meta. Then you went on to an on meta. Then you went back to off meta. Does that make sense? But like, did you find that like you went to Gordrak and then you got to Zeech and then you got onto like off meta armies? Did you feel like that experience with on meta, like just with gameplay and stuff, you go, cool, I can do this and this and this. Then when you went into off meta, you kind of have like, I got all this experience behind me. I can
like
run this army.
Like it's a little holiday break. It's a break.
Like that was like cool. And then now you've gone into this off meta thing. Like now I have to work hard, but I can't do it because I have a background understanding of like how to win the game or like how to like.
I agree with that. Does that make sense? I think the biggest thing there is that when you're playing any army, it's all about the amount of reps that you can do to gain up your skills. And so whether that's doing reps with the same army over and over and over again, so whether you pick an army and stick with it for like 3 years, then Matt Campbell's now been playing Khorne, or if you choose a variety of armies with different play styles, and then that can expand the way that you play. So that's what I do is whenever I choose a new army, it'll be a new play style and a new hobby experience for me. So my Iron Jaw is obviously very smashy, very run across the table. Then Zeech, a lot more tricksy, can play in all the different phases of the game. Taking on to the Night Haunt, you've got like a lot of skirmishing, multiple small units, and then into the Devoted of Sigmar with a Horde. And playing all those different types of armies, even though not all of them are meta choices, it gives you an insight into how to play against the meta choices, which I think is really valuable.
Yeah. Luke, what armies did you play before you were going off meta? Like, did you play anything that was on meta before you went off meta?
Maybe the better question
is you can be super honest. Like, what did you play?
Not for long.
Like,
I've played a little bit of Stormcast in between, but my first Age of Sigmar army was ported straight over from Fantasy, which was my Wood Elves, so turned into Wanderers. I never went down the Sylvaneth route because I'm an Elf player through and through, and Tree Spirits were garbage in Fantasy 8th. It was all about... and so, I came over straight away with an off-meta army. People didn't know what Wanderers did. And I dabbled a little bit in Stormcast, but... still you
just went straight back to off meta. So like for me, my experience has been I went to Sylvaneth. So I first started with Sylvaneth, and then would you guys all say when I started Sylvaneth was like on meta at the time? It was popular-ish.
Sylvaneth was quite popular. They certainly were.
It was kind of Hunter spam. It was kind of Hunter spam. And then I went to what was that second army I ran? Flesh Eaters. Now before bullshit book that came out 6 months ago. When Flesh Eaters was like, no one ever looked at it. I remember this. No one ever looked at Flesh Eaters. Like, everyone's like, Flesh Eaters is garbage. And I ran Dead Watch. And, like, I caught people by surprise by it, right? But since I had all the experience from Sylvaneth, when I carried it over to Feck, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I can do some really busted stuff with this. Even though I ran pretty much a Kernel Hunter list, but in Feck version. And then I quickly went back to Sylvaneth. And then, because it was then went off meta. And then went on meta again with Doors of Khaine, where all I had to do was move forward. And then back to, like, it was like constantly going. But like with me going to something that was like on meta has always helped me when I went off meta. So that's why I asked that question to see if it was like something similar where like maybe practicing an army that is on meta and getting the game an understanding of like objectives and competing against other armies that are also on meta because you're at the top tables and stuff. And like it just helps you out when you start going like really skew and start being like, I'm going to run this. I'm going to run this.
Yeah, so certainly if you want to do really well, in every tournament you go to, certainly by choosing an on-meta army to begin with, you're giving yourself a good chance in your first tournament ever. By choosing something a little bit off-meta, you still get just as much experience, but you might not win all your games.
Yeah, like... I feel like if you go on meta, you'll be at the top tables. Like we're talking about like tournaments and stuff. But if you go something where like you're on meta, you're going to be meeting the top players on the top tables because they're also on meta. And then when you start going like, okay, cool, I'm going to go off meta, you'll have all that experience from playing those top players. And then you go cool. And then when you go back to the tournament with Devoted of Sigmar, people are going to be like, haha, Devoted of Sigmar. You're like, haha, hold my beer. Watch me.
See, I disagree with you on that one, Liam. I massively, no, absolutely, I'll massively disagree with you on this one. I love the chat and even the comments later to share which side you're on. if I start with a on meta army, let's say I went to get my local games workshop today and I picked up 3 Keepers of
Slaanesh.
Secrets and a whole bunch of Slaanesh, right? I go in and I'm going to start my Slaanesh army and I punch face and I absolutely destroy at tournaments. I go 5-0, 4-1. You know, I'm really, really good at what I do. I then walk away and I try something different. If I haven't built the foundations of what makes a successful tournament and how do I build a strong list, I don't think the foundations are quite there. I'm going to get frustrated and likely quit. So in my opinion, you've got to start building the foundations of learning the game. Then you can pick up a meta army or a non-meta army. I just don't think they correlate between the two.
I think you picked Slaanesh as the wrong army to pick on that, but let's just say
we're talking meta. We're talking meta here.
Yeah,
So
we're talking like Slaanesh is legitimately like AOS on easy mode more so than Doors of Cain. Like for example, let's just say you bought a Doors of Cain. Let's say we bought Doors of Cain, right? You'll learn so much more out of Doors of Cain because that army has
bullshit. If I take 90 to 120 Witch Elf under Hagnar with a bunch of Witch Elf Hag Queens, I push them forward. What am I learning? I'm learning how to push things forward.
You want an army that can play in all phases of the game.
Yeah, Doors of Cain.
You want an army that can play
all phases.
Yeah, if you want to play an army, you want an army that can compete in all phases of the game, not just play. So this doesn't mean like something that has a shooting unit. It needs to be able to have a shooting phase. It needs to be able to have a hero phase that involves all parts of the hero phase. It needs to have a combat phase. It needs to have a movement phase. Yeah, it needs to have a battle phase as well.
So like armies, like for example, Doors of Cain has something in every phase.
If you build,
I'm not saying like I'm not.
Yeah,
no,
certainly.
Legitimately, the net list right now is every phase because they have harpies that shoot, they have retreat and charge, they have all that stuff in their list. Like they have shenanigans that will teach you about the game.
This is why Stormcast is the good army to start with. That's why it's traditionally the one that's recommended because it activates in all the phases. It's not super strong in one of them. It's more of a utility knife.
And
yeah, I know what he's saying.
Stormcast would also get mentioned because of painting standards as well. There's another great reason why a starting army should be easy to paint.
Yeah,
large flat areas are both easy but allow you to progress your painting standards and skills as well.
I think there's definitely pros and cons on both sides. I absolutely see what Liam has to say. I also disagree with certain things, but I think long story short, the meta armies and what?
There was a comment up with Ryan Hooper. He said something about he started 4 months. Here we go. So I started about a year ago with trees, and then there was that for 4 months gap of trees, then jumped on Slaanesh, and I agreed to couch the main coach. The main focus. Okay, agree. The coach main focus was trying not to let the crutch make me sloppy. Yeah, so he went to an army that is hard to play, right? Absolutely, and then he went to an army that was easy. Let's all agree, right? Slaanesh is AOS on easy mode.
Yeah, but so roll 2 up and you good.
So was Flesh Eater Courts at the time.
Yeah, when they FAQ'd it. But so that's the thing. Like he went into a really hard level. I see this all over on like the Sylvaneth page. There's people on the Sylvaneth page, right, that are literally dropping the army because it's too hard to play. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
but like
it's
to
got
me,
a lot of rules and nuance.
But to me, right, I'm like, oh no, this army is fine. Like it is the thing. But that's because again, I played on an army, like armies which were on meta, and then now with my Sylvaneth, I can compete against the on meta with an off meta army. Does that make sense?
I see what you mean, and it comes down a little bit to what I think Joel was saying in the comments before, that if you learn the tournament experience with an on meta army, it gives you the tools that you need to be able to play at that level, and then you can take that experience to the off meta army, and that will allow you to understand where the nuance is in movement and piling in, where the nuance is in like making sure that your buffs are within range. Like even with Daughters of Cain, as much as it is an obvious choice, the way that you need to do it is you need to leave a string back to your 3-inch buff from your Hag
7 inch. 7 inch. Oh no, 3 inch for the Hag Queen, but 7 inch for everything else.
Yeah,
But-
so like there is still that nuance in the list, and same thing with Slaanesh. I would say is that you do still need to have the heroes in a position that allows them to summon things like Legions and Nagash. You still had to be able to protect your grave sites to be able to bring back those 40 Grimghast Reapers when you needed to. So even though they are easy mode armies, I think it still does give you a lot of experience in the tournament setting to be able to take that to whatever army you choose, and it goes both ways.
And that absolutely goes both ways. It's not unique to a meta army. Learning the hard way. If I walked into the game and I started with a Devoted of Sigmar army, I learnt the hard way how to win. Then absolutely, when I go into a top tier army, I'm absolutely going to smash it up because I've absolutely learned every single rule and the importance of making the most of every single model because I don't have all of the benefits that those stronger armies currently have. So it absolutely goes both ways.
Now, Ash, you brought this up earlier where you actually ran an on-meta army, but you picked off-meta units.
Yeah.
Now, and I remember everyone would looked at you being like, why on earth don't you have 27 Skyfires? I remember this conversation happened so often to you, and you was like, because this is the thing. But so would you guys also say that some of the on-meta armies, right, like Deepkin, Doors of Cain and stuff, have off-meta lists?
Certainly.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, cool. Deepkin throws.
No, I was about to say Sharks.
Perfect example. Ben Spinetti and Sharks.
Yeah,
perfect example.
But Luke, you've called it out Thralls as well. When you see a Deepkin army,
a Thrall heavy list. Every list has Thralls, but
Turtles is another example.
Yeah, Turtles are the heroes.
Even a Skaven list that focuses on Mulder or Ishan.
Yeah,
Legion of the Gash with zombies.
So something else to mention in this show is that even on-meta armies can be off-meta, right? Like we never see a snake.
It's not about
we never
the
see
battle tome or the allegiance. It's about the composition of the army that you've chosen.
Okay, let me ask this, guys. How many armies of Doors of Cain, we talked about Doors of Cain before, and we all talked about they just move forward. How many times have you played an only snake army Doors of Cain?
I play them on a regular basis.
Okay, minus Luke. How many?
Just once.
That is the two local Daughters of Cain armies I play are both Temple Nest.
Okay, awesome. That there is off meta completely. Also, that is a massive bank account hit. But it's a bank account hit.
Yeah, and that's across a lot of things, Liam. When I was running my Legion of Nagash, I was Manfred. I was Manfred and Legion of Night. I think the point you're trying to make that I 100% agree with is that the Beastclaw Raiders, as an example, isn't the only example of an off meta. There are off meta components that catch people by surprise in almost all armies. The Cities of Sigmar is a book that everyone's talking about right now, but very few people. People are only talking about the Hello Hearts, the Hammer Halls,
was it the Fellwater Fasters or something?
Great Water Fastness in some capacity.
Whatever.
But very few people are talking
Tempest
about
Eye is really
some
good.
Some people aren't talking about Tempest Eye. So
and even amongst those as well, that book itself has almost 50 war scrolls in it. So
it has 43, 5 less than Stormcast.
There you go. So you'll see a lot.
Wait. Hang on. Stormcast have what?
Stormcast have 47 unit entries.
That one army has 47 unit entries, but Cities of Sigmar that combined it, how many allegiances to one has?
It's technically only 3. It's only 4 army ranges. Technically,
I think Nurgle can have more actually between Hammercard and throw in the Slaves to Darkness.
But yeah, anyway,
I just want to bring up a comment that Corey has brought up, which is a really interesting comment. He said, at present, it sounds like you are viewing the meta as a negative play experience. However, should there be a discussion around the responsibilities of games work to ensure balance? So, look, the word balance could probably be a 7 to 10 hour discussion here on itself. But at a very high level, I will say the meta is not a bad thing. The meta is not a good thing. The meta is the meta.
Can I give him a nice short answer about that?
No. We're going to let our guest speak first, Liam.
You go first, Luke, but I got one thing to say.
Let our guest speak first.
I'll probably say like, no, the meta is not a negative experience. I'll say the meta has been the best I've ever seen it in Age of Sigmar. You hear people talking about the fat middle, and it's fatter than it's ever been. Like, yes, you have some outliers that some armies are better than others, and some are worse than others. But the vast majority of books and even army builds fall in that fat middle, and you're more likely to find and it's why you're seeing armies now like Flesh Eater Courts in middle table games. And armies like Scourge Privateers or Devoted of Sigmar, we're playing in mid-tables to high tables because we all can do it. And the game's in a really good place because of it.
Well, you think about Slaanesh, right? People have had a bad experience against Slaanesh, and people are going, well, I'm fighting last in combat. How do I avoid that? If I know them going to a tournament and the meta is Slaanesh, I'm going to try and find shooting. And all of a sudden, it's that type of stuff that puts those high armies into balance. As the meta kind of evolves.
Dark Obliterator just said it well in the chat there. The meta isn't a bad guy. The meta isn't a good guy. The meta is a guy, and he's just the thing.
Yeah, it could be a girl as well. It could
be a girl.
Yeah.
Ash,
the meta is a thing.
Ash, you going to add to that?
No, I think you guys have covered that pretty well. I guess the only thing that I would say to Corey's comment about balance, just to get ahead of Liam here, is that I guess the question is whether it's actually a good thing for the game to have every army as equally balanced. And I would argue that it's more exciting for the game to have the bad guy, to have Slaanesh, to have the Flesh Eater Courts. Yeah, to have the boogeyman. Yeah. So you can take it down with your Devoted of Sigmar in the last round of a tournament and get the props for
Respect.
That. Like, I think that's good for the game.
Yeah, related to like a sporting tournament where you have the big teams up top, you have the little teams down bottom, and everyone roots for those little minnows to think of when Leicester won the Premier League. Like everyone was rooting for them.
Let's say this
soccer
like
reference for anyone.
I was about to say
there were 5,001 odd to win the Premier League. There we go.
Awesome.
Let's just talk about a soccer reference quickly where like Australia goes up against Brazil, right? And we all thought we were going to get smashed, right? But we actually held our own. And we did well. And like, there has to be a bad guy in the game. There has to be a boogeyman in it. Like, and to be honest, it keeps it fresh and it makes you want to write more different lists. Like, I remember with the Activation Wars, you saw Sisters of Slaughter. Sorry for bringing back Doors of King, but you saw Sisters of Slaughter come back, being like, okay, cool, we got 6-inch piling. Bring on your Activation Wars. Also, that meta, like the meta changing with the Activation Wars again. You have to bring in like playing techniques. Like, for example, at Lords of War, I went up against a Gristlegore list, right? Where they get to strike first and all this shenanigans, right? And I literally just went up to this guy and said, by the way, I'm just going to do something that's going to really piss you off. And he goes, haha, I doubt it because I got a strike first mechanic. And I was like, no, this will piss you off. I charged my unit in 3 inches away from his Gristlegore general, but I end the charge next to a unit half an inch to his ghouls or whatever. So I said, cool, I'm half an inch to them. They're the closest unit, but they're next to your Gristlegore general. I'm 3 inches out. And I said, okay, cool. And I looked him dead in the eye. I'm like, start of the combat phase. Do you have anything to do? He goes, oh, no, my mechanic only works at start of the combat phase. I'm like, cool, awesome. Now I get to pile in and kill your general. And like doing stuff like that, doing techniques like that, cause of the meta makes you a better general. Yeah. So I wouldn't say GW is the bad guy or anything like that. If anything, GW is saying like, okay, cool, guys, here's a mechanic that we're going to throw in. How are you going to counter it? And we all just went, cool, hold my beer. Let's show you how to fuck this shit up. And that's what
the current one is endless spells coming.
Well, I would say Gotrek is currently it's like you get punished once. It's like, shame on me. I didn't handle Gotrek correctly. Now I'm like, right, how am I going to tweak it? How am I going to either ignore him? How am I going to try to use like a shackles? How am I going to handle somebody in a 2,000 point battle, 1/4 of their army in one single model? Look, I think we're kind of deviating a little bit from this meta versus non-meta. Some interesting discussion.
Just to answer Corey's question, I think what GW are doing is fine. It makes us better generals for what they do. So yeah. Tristan, I'll message you to answer that question on how that works. It's a thing that Dan Brewer taught me. All right.
Let's back on topic. I want to get back into meta versus non-meta. The meta is not a good thing. The meta is not a bad thing. The meta is just the meta. if you're going to build a non-meta army, essentially one that's not popular, something that's not very seeing on the table, it's something that may surprise and delight your opponent. I want to ask the boys, Luke, I'll come to you first. What are the advantages of running a non-meta army?
Well, first and foremost, no one knows what it does. You will be struggling to find anyone who has actually read your War Scrolls. The amount of time, I mean, when I played you, Anthony, like, would you have written Scourge Privateer War Scrolls had I not grudged you?
I played Clint once with a Charybdis, but otherwise, when so just to bring it back, Luke challenged me in a stream from Warhammer Weekly, and I'm like, cool, let's play. Looking at the War Scrolls, you see the battalion, you see the Fleet Master, and you're like, okay, cool. There's only like 5 or 6 War Scrolls. I semi-glossed over it, and then when they get into the table, you're like, oh, this is actually how it works. Holy shit! You actually punch out a lot of shooting. And the maths hammer really comes out where you look at the War Scroll, it's like, same as like Devoted of Sigmar. I look at Ash's list and I'm like, okay, he's got 140 flagellates. All right. Okay. He's got a couple of war altars. All right. Some couple of small heroes. Okay. Then all of a sudden it's like, whoa.
Then all of a sudden they're shooting twice, shooting in the hero phase, re-rolling everything.
Yeah.
And it becomes a thing. Yeah. But most certainly no one knows what it does is an advantage in itself. Your own personal benefit, like, there's a thrill in playing something so different and that you can make your own.
Yeah.
Quick question. Do you find, since not a lot of people not know like what your stuff does, do you feel like you spend a lot of your pre-game explaining everything? Like it takes a lot of your deployment time?
I generally do it while I deploy. I'm pretty well versed at doing that sort of thing now. When I put units down, I explain what they do because I go, have you seen this? And most people say no. And so I go, cool, this is what this does. This is a battalion. This allows me to activate in the hero phase. This unit shoots 2 shots at 9-inch, blah, 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 blah.
And I'll just call out before I move to Ash that also can be a negative or a bad thing as well, because I know when I was running my free people and I would have the great company rule, which allowed you to kind of like shoot in a charge phase where even when someone's not charging you, people would get caught out late in the game. So you're constantly educating them and making sure there was none of these I gotcha moments or, things that, because you know what a Kurnoth hunter does, you probably don't need the full explanation. But when you're charging a unit of handgunners and then the crossbowmen are shooting because you charge the handgunners, you're like, I don't understand how this works.
That was really important. Like, and I do that in most of the games where like I remind people, they're like, oh, you've only got a 6-inch move. It's like, yeah, I have a 6-inch move, but I move in the hero phase too. Like, and you don't want to win by a gotcha moment.
Yeah. Ash, were you going to say something as well? What?
Yeah, like you say, when you're talking through your army at the beginning of the game, you've just got to make sure that you're very clear with the things that will matter for your opponent's army. So things like threat ranges. So, for example, for my Devoted of Sigmar, I came up against 3 Chaos armies on the weekend, and my War Altars will do 6 damage against Chaos with D3 shots each. So that's something to call out and make sure your opponent knows. All right, so they have a 30-inch effective threat range. If you don't want to get shot by it, stay 30 inches away. And that'll force some mistakes in your opponent as well. I had one of my opponents who was playing the Blades of Khorne move 3 Bloodthirsters into the corner of his deployment zone out of range of all of my army and his objectives. So it gave me the opening to play through the first 2 turns without getting hit by a Bloodthirster. And yeah, I guess that's something just to pull out, is make sure that you're very clear with the things that matter for your opponent so that they don't have that feel bad moment.
Yeah, and like, Joel McGrath again has called out that he had to explain his rules over and over again. I know at plenty of times I would actually have like a little cheat sheet I'd give to my opponent. I'm like, here are the most common things that you probably should know about my army. So they can always refer to that.
Shout out to AOS Reminders for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, AOS Reminders is pretty good for that now.
Yeah, I think that's almost better for your opponent than it is for you as a player, because I find if I've got a cheat sheet for myself, I'll spend more time looking at that than I am talking with my opponent. But it's something to give your opponent to say, this is all my abilities. Feel free to read them through whilst I'm doing anything, so that they've not got that surprise moment.
Yeah, like
You can
For
just go about your
me-
day and they follow what you're doing.
Like for me, I sometimes just write a little quick summary on like what my list does. For example, like when I ran like off meta effect stuff, I was like, this is what it does. This is the effective range, similar to what Ash did. Any questions? And they're like, nah, I'm like, cool. And just give it to them kind of thing helps.
Well, even just asking them, have you played a Free People army before? Do you know what the Legion of Night do? Cool, let me explain. And taking that moment or that opportunity to just give them that very high level. Don't tell them all your tips and ticks and or your tactics, but look, this is what it does. This is the thing to look out for. I'm going to be able to take three units off the board. They're going to come on any movement phase.
Yeah, the way I usually phrase it is like, how much do you know about my army? Because some people will say, like, if you ask them a direct question, like, how much do you know about Khorne? They'll say, oh, yeah, generic gold pilgrims. But some people will say, I've played like my mate a few times and he plays with Fleshhounds and Karanak, and that's not the list that you're playing. So you need to have that like understanding of that conversation at the beginning of the game, just like on the specifics of the army that you're playing. How much do you know about it? Like, can I tell you anything that you need to know to make this game a more enjoyable experience?
No, love it. And then on the flip side, what's the disadvantages of running a non-meta army?
On itself, having to explain everything.
Yep.
It's an advantage and a disadvantage.
Like Joel pulled out, having to tell your opponent at the start of every game, take maybe 10 minutes to talk through things. Even when I was playing my Nighthaunt, I'd have games where, as I was deploying, it would take just that little bit longer. So you do have less time in the round, and you have to make up for that with your speed of play to make sure that you do finish your games on time.
Yeah. Probably the other thing with like off meta armies, especially like when we're talking like as far off meta as like Devoted or Scourge Privateers, it takes practice, and you are going to lose games and lose a lot of games, or just you're going to rebuild the list and rethink and rethink and rethink. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
I played lots and lots of games with my privateers to get, I think, as good as I am with them and pretty crisp with the army that I play now. And it certainly didn't happen from just writing a list and putting it on the table once or twice. We're talking before CanCon, I probably had 30 games with the privateers knocked out in like a 6-month period.
Practice. And Tristan Gray makes a really good comment as well. And he says, the worst part of playing off meta armies is often the last couple of turns where, you're in the thick of the game and someone might forget some of those rules. So if it means checking in or, trying to avoid those aha gotcha moments.
Just being very clear every time you do any ability or any dice roll, just make sure that your opponent knows what that's for, so that there's not that moment.
I'll put down measuring sticks.
Yeah.
I'll put down measuring sticks with my Scourge Privateers because I got a 9-inch range with the crossbows, and I just put like one down in front of my shooting unit. Just go, remember, this is how far they shoot.
Yeah.
And you go, the whole unit unloads when they do.
Yeah, and to be fair, to the Slaanesh, and I'm bringing up Joel again. Joel was playing with them pre-battle tome, so having to explain how the summoning works, and then hopefully not having those bad, those feel bad moments in turn 5 when you bring on a Keeper of Secrets, because you've forgotten how the depravity points worked pre-battle tome. Liam, is there anything else that you see as a disadvantage of running a non-meta army?
The one thing for me, and like this has been a thing for me when it comes to like off meta and stuff, is like I only run armies that have a battle tome. We've known this since day one. I only buy armies or invest in armies that have a battle tome. So for me, running an off meta army would generally, like, if, for example, if I was like trying to run any of the armies that Luke or Ash would run, I feel like the biggest disadvantage is the lack of support of artifacts and spell lore for list writing, if that makes sense. Like, and since not a lot of tournament packs and stuff, unlike but you did, support the malign sorcery lore. So I feel like that's a huge disadvantage when it comes to running some like of the off meta armies or off meta stuff, is because the support isn't there. So for me, when it comes to running a off meta army, it would probably have to be something with a battle tome, for example, Sylvaneth at the moment. And then again, it's just one of those things where like constantly probably have to explain to my opponent to be like, hey, do you know what tree revs do? And they're like, nah. I'm like, okay, this is what tree revs do. Okay, cool. Now I'm just going to deploy them right here. And then like they forget them, and then you do the tree rev thing, and then you got this like kind of like feel bad moment, but you kind of did tell them. And yeah, it's just that. It's just one of those things where that's just like two things. It's just like the lack of support for like artifacts and stuff and spell lore.
So you feel like you don't have enough flexibility in your list building to be able to
artifact
sustain.
was helped immensely by what's it called? Malign sorcery. I was about to say forbidden shout, wrong one.
That definitely
But
helped.
that massively helped in one aspect.
The spell lore?
Spells is another one.
Yeah.
If they were, I guess, implemented the way some of us thought they should have been, they might have not been.
Let's talk about Darkling Covings before Caesar Sigma, right? Awesome army, huge range, got sorcerers, got everything. They only got like 2 spells.
Yeah.
Right? Compare them to Deacon, which has like rituals, spell lore, the whole shebang. Like Darkling Covings being like, I can just Mystic Shield.
And I guess the point is
the point though,
that's got a variety of tools that you can pick from. So, for example, when I chose the Devoted of Sigmar, there's 2 prayers on every war scroll, or 3 prayers on some of the war scrolls. So that gives you enough flexibility. You don't need a spell lore. You can already play it around with that and react to different situations.
Your Devoted also had a Knight Incantor, which also has access to endless spells.
Yeah.
So that's yours, like access to spell lore, kind of.
Yeah. Allies is definitely a good way. It's probably also worth mentioning that I guess the way Games Workshop envisions we play the game is with the realm rules in effect at all times. So that's how they envision the game. That's how they do it at Warhammer World. That's how they envision it. Whether or not we do is a different story. But that in itself is how they might have viewed that in a way that everyone does have spell laws because everyone can use the realm spells.
So Luke, there's an example of the meta. So when I went to Adepticon earlier this year, the tournament was full realm spells. So you could access all of the realm spells in Malign Sorcery. But in Australia, that is not very common, if any. Most people will use the realm stuff maybe from the core rulebook, but very, very, very few will use it from Malign Sorcery. So that in itself is a meta, knowing that you do or you don't get access.
Like I know for a fact, Magro, your player pack on the weekend. For anyone who's listening and didn't know this, Magro said if you wanted to use the Malign Sorcery spell lore, you would have to like not use your, let's say, Deepkin, right? Let's just talk about Ben Spinetti, right?
I blatantly stole that from Bush Bash, by the way. So shout out to the Measured Gaming boys. 100% legit stole out. If you see a good idea, steal it, take it, make it your own. Yes.
So apparently Bush Bash did it, but like pretty much instead of saying, let's say, I'm taking the Deepkin lore, I'm going to take the lore from the Realm of Fire, right? So that kind of like, that changes the meta. Like that changes people's list building. That changes the whole thing where like that is a meta, like the pretty much like player packs and tournaments change the meta heaps on like what people are going to bring. So that there, like you start seeing Spinetti being like, okay, cool, I'm going to do this with my eels. And now his defensive eels are now both defensive and offensive because now you just change that unit's use. And so having something like that, and that's why if every pack did that, then you probably would see Darkling Covings and like all these other armies just coming out of nowhere because they got access to a spell lore.
Yeah. And Ash touched on it a bit. Well, you did as well. Like allies is a great thing for these off-meta armies. I mean, a lot of them used to be, I guess, the fully off-meta sort of stuff. A lot of it was order, which means we all got access to Stormcast, which they do everything. So it's a great way to fill in the gaps for those sort of things. You can put a Knight Incantor. You can take a unit of Sequidors. You can take a Lord of Quilla for movement shenanigans and
every Death army can take a Death Lord in it. So like there's always the tools there that you can bring, even if you're playing if you're
even
playing
destruction.
Unusual. You can always take most armies can ally in with Iron Jaws.
Or Grots in a way.
I guess Grots in a way, You can always bring a weight of bodies, whether it's through Gloomspite or through the Gutbuster Grots.
Yeah,
Good call out. Good call out by Craig as well in the chat, where he said all the realm rules are now in the new game book that Games Workshop put out recently, the $55 AUD book. So you might find that now that we're not carrying around 60 million tomes, that this becomes more common. That one simple tool may change the meta in itself, because
certainly makes it best, that little book.
Yeah, all the spells that you need, it's very easy to access. So keep an eye out for that one. But I think it's quite interesting. I know when I'm listening to you guys, I'm hearing how much the narrative, how much the hobby opportunity, how much the uniqueness, and the challenge as well. I know I took away a lot of. I know when Liam, you didn't ask me this question when you asked everyone else about the armies they've run. I moved to Gloomspite Gits actually before the book dropped. I moved into the Moon Clan, and I was very much building a squig heavy army. And the reason I wanted to do that, I did. Before I fell into the meta and I was running around with 140 grots, I was running 2 colossal squigs. I was using a squig gobber. I was running a whole bunch of squigs, and that was a painting opportunity. It was something unique, something fun, because it wasn't the hardest hitting meta.
And no one was running it.
Go in there with low expectations. Yeah. I wasn't forcing myself to feel like I had to go 4-1 or 5-0. I could go in there and have fun. There was no weight on my shoulders. And
just to let everyone else know, you were running an on meta army before you did this project.
Legion of Night.
Yeah.
No,
it was like Legion Nagash. You're running Death.
But I was running Legion of Night. Specifically, I was running Manfred under Legion of Night.
I think the key point to pull out, though, is that by taking an army that's off meta, you can relax into the tournament experience a little bit more, and sometimes that means that you play better. So when I took my Night Aunt to down to Canberra for the Anzac Cup, I was looking for 1 win out of 5, and that was just because I had no experience of how the meta was going to be in that situation. And I knew that Nighthaunt weren't going to be the strongest army that was showing up, like if the Flesh Eater Courts and the Skaven books had just dropped. So I had the expectation of myself that I would just do okay. And then as a result, it meant that I was aware of the strengths of the other armies and playing really well and able to pull out the 5 wins that you need to win a tournament. And that can happen.
Yeah, and you were running the Purple Sun when it was at 100 points.
Yeah, it was.
So there's another non-meta choice, right? Like you were running around with something to 30D Graph has said, lol, I was doing it before the tome sounds like the AOS version of I was doing it before it was cool. No, it's true. Like before I got on the bandwagon, it tooted along in front of me. I was running around with the Purple Sun. But you're right. Like people look at this going, oh, I know Geminids, I know Umbral Spell Portal, I know all these different spells. But then the minute I started dropping Palisades, or you're doing the Purple Sun, people are like, oh, this is different. I haven't experienced a Purple Sun before, and it does create a whole new experience. And I couldn't agree more that the weight starts coming off your shoulders because there's no expectation set on you, and nor does someone look at you and go, oh, I know what that does. I just need to kill this hero, and your whole army collapses.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, most certainly.
Liam, any questions that you have for our guest before we start wrapping this up?
So with your armies now being combined into one book, what is your next off-meta project that you're thinking of doing?
A Kurnothi army. I will be getting some Wild Raiders.
You're triggering me right now because it's not an army. You're triggering me so much because it's not.
I'm going to have an army of Kurnothi. So I'm going to do Wanderers. I have a massive Wanderers collection. They were like my love. But they will be Kurnothi.
So will you run those in Living City, or are you going to go with a Wood Elf army?
No, it's going to be the Living City. It's the narrative, the narrative thing. So I can get that Viridian Pathfinders battalion, a unit of Wild Rider. So I'll get Wild Riders and like hack them together. Go get some Ungors. I think that'll probably be the best fit. And combine them with and make some sort of War Dancer looking models.
Sounds good.
It's awesome.
Ash, yourself? What is your next off-meta project?
I'm kind of in between projects at the moment. I mean, the choice at the moment is whether I stick with the Cities of Sigmar book, or whether I go rogue and go mixed order. And I think the better choice is to go mixed order, and just throw in a few crossbowmen into my Devoted of Sigmar army that I've got currently. And then with the buff to the Flagellant War Scroll itself, it means that by throwing on the prayers, you get a really choppy unit. So I think that may be the way to go for CanCon at least.
Which crossbows, by the way? Free Guild, Dark Elf, or Stormcast?
I've had a look at all of the options, and I think the Free Guild crossbows will fit in nicely. Throw in a Free Guild General and Foot in there as well, so that they're 3x2s with 60 shots out of your 3 battle line units. So that's the plan. That's just going to be sitting behind 80 flagellants. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Anthony, any off-meta army projects you're coming?
I'm glad that you asked me, Liam.
I knew he was looking at it being like, Liam, you better ask me this goddamn question. I'm just like, oh, here we go. Bring it.
So back when I played the Empire back in 4th edition, I never left home without 2 volley guns. I ran volley guns till my heart was content, often 3 volley guns. If not 3 volley guns, I'd take a great cannon or 2. Now I know Greywater Fastness is all about the rocket batteries. I want to be able to see if I can build in a couple of sexy volley guns, especially now that the War Scroll is a combined War Scroll as opposed to having independent crew and a war machine. So I don't know if the opportunity is there, but I think a volley gun.
It's there. Throw in a Soul Screen Bridge and you've got it. That's the one.
Could be interesting. Would be nice with the Lord Ordinator and a Cogsmith or something.
And a Hurricane.
Potentially a Hurricane, but yeah, volley guns for me will be my off-meta selections.
Awesome.
Yeah. No,
Liam, yourself.
I'm running Sylvaneth, man. That is off-meta. How many people turned up to with Sylvaneth at all in the past month in Australia?
Well, at Sydney
Did you see my cabinet?
Well, at
Sydney GT,
there
0.
were 3 Tomb Kings armies and 0 Sylvaneth armies. So,
oh wow,
Bush Bash only had 2 players, and then I'm pretty sure Toowoomba only had 1 or 2 players. So I think Sylvaneth went from the most popular AOS army last year to now up there as non-existent because no one knows how to use that goddamn book. Even though there's this great resource that the coach did with a few all-star players, and clearly it's just. Yeah, I don't know.
It's 2 all-star players and Liam. Yeah.
Shout out to this comment here, mercenaries. Let's bring some mercenaries on the table. I know we had the Gargant list at City GT. We had a couple of Gargants. I want to see more mercenaries. I want to see. Hey, maybe I bring a Free People army or a Cities of Sigmar army with a Necromancer and 40 skeletons in that list.
I've actually got plans for the Marauders. Actually.
Yeah, well, we saw Bill Souza with Marauders, had 40 Marauders in his mixed order list, win the tournament on the weekend as well. So, yeah.
Oh, that mixed order list was so off meta, it's not funny.
Wait, what was it? Wait, what did he run? Who was it? Who was running what?
Bill Souza. It was like Skinks, Crossbowmen,
Captain of America,
Caradron Overlords, 40 Marauders, and other stuff. Just literally.
Tenebrial Shard, a couple of buffing heroes, and then the Soul Screen Bridge, and it was that he used. So he'd teleport them through the Soul Screen Bridge, all the Marauders, and then because when they set up, they get a D6 as the extra D6 inch move. So teleport, set up, move D6, and then charge, and you're close enough to pretty much guarantee that charge as well. So yeah, it's got legs.
Yeah, it's great.
But I think my next project is probably going to be Bone Reapers. Because they won't be on meta, they'll be off meta.
Bone Reapers. 4 catapults.
And also I am very. What? Wait, what?
You don't reckon they're going to be meta? Yeah, you don't think people are going to be salivating?
In the next 4 months, people need to break the book. Don't give me a week. I'll break the book completely.
I think he's sort of right. Most people won't have the army straight up. You won't see him for a bit.
It's going to be like Deepkin. Deepkin, you did not see for 6 or 9 months.
Yeah, production meta.
I think you'll see things like people grabbing the skull catapults and putting them into legions maybe initially and then slowly build, or maybe putting Arcan. Yeah.
I'm saying full Bone Reaper allegiance. Like I'm not gonna do a Grimghast Reaper situation where I just have 60 Grimghast Reapers and a Legion of Gash army because I'm basic. It's yeah.
People on the podcast, I am shaking my head at my co-host.
Anyways,
this is a Liam we love.
Look, I still respect all deaf players now because one command point brings back a unit and that takes skill. But yeah, so pretty much
Says the fleshy decor and daughters of Cain player, ladies and gentlemen.
Anyways,
just
another army that I
did
want
you
to
buy Slaanesh as well? Was that you bought some Slaanesh, didn't you?
I bought Slaanesh before the book came out, and then I read the book and I said I'm not picking up this army till they fix depravity points.
Yeah.
But then I wrote a really nice friendly Slaanesh list that I sent to Magro and to Ash. No, it is actually really friendly. It's only got one Keeper of Secrets and a few Harp Ladies. It's fine. It's not like I'm trying to score depravity off by shooting, because shooting is definitely not back totally. So
those Harp Ladies with the shooting are pretty good though. You bring
Harp Ladies are amazing. So pretty much that's my off meta. Liam needs more Nogle's gift. Thanks, Tristan.
All right, Liam's getting on his high horse again. I think we need to
wrap. On my high horse. I'm just saying that I am going to try and go off meta for the next year.
Okay.
We'll hold that to you.
Yeah, let's hold it. If anyone on this show can clip that particular audio piece that says Liam, I'm going to write that down. 1 hour and 55 into the show, Liam says that he is going to be off meta for the year. So let's see how that plans out, guys, ladies and gentlemen.
We did say that I can run on meta armies, but make it off meta a bit. We did say that in the show. So can we also get that clip in to make sure that
I think we've already cut the clip. We've cut the clip.
No, we've already cut that bit out.
Yeah.
Ash, as a part of Clan Filth, you need to hold Liam accountable to his off-meta ways. I look forward to seeing him running a whole bunch of the Warcry warbands in Age of Sigmar, along with Archaon and a bunch of Slaves to Darkness in his new CanCon list.
I would love to see that.
Wait,
Liam, as an off-meta champion, I look forward to seeing you painting up Archaon with all of the Warcry warband and some Slaves to Darkness Chaos Warriors.
That should be a really competitive list, to be honest.
Awesome, do it. Challenge accepted by Liam. But
I am not buying warbands. Look, I'm already running Sylvaneth. It's already a finesse army as it is. So
cool. All right, so we've talked about off meta. We've talked about why you want to run them. You want to run them because they're competitive. They're not always competitive, but they are fun. They are challenging. They are unique. They're sometimes cheap. They're actually really cheap. You can buy them on eBay. You can buy them often at lower prices at Games Workshop. There's a lot of cool reasons to run them. You will be the hero of your local scene, and they are very rewarding. Scourge Privateers, Devoted of Sigmar, what else? Beastclaw Raiders, Swift Hawk Agents.
So good you say it twice.
So good. I'm so happy to see them disappear eventually under the Cities of Sigmar. You've been brought into the fold of the Anvil Guard.
Quickly, if you have performed really well with an off-meta army, let us know, and also let Rob Symes know from The Honest Wargamer, because he loves hearing about that. He loves hearing about armies. He will literally be like, "What the hell are you doing?" And he will just want to talk to you about it all. So yeah, that's just one thing as well. So if you feel like you've achieved something really good, like you went 3-2 with Slaves to Darkness or 4-1 or whatever, like tell us and we'll be like high-fiving you and stuff. Did well
awesome. With Darkling Coven. You do well. Dispossessed Dan did very well with the Dispossessed.
People in the community love hearing about that, because those are the armies where you just go, you deserve a round of drinks, or as Randy would like to say, a blue tingle. So yeah.
Get in touch with the coach and Shadowhammer, and they'll bring you on to talk about it.
Oh, this sounds like a beautiful way to wrap up. So if people want to share those lists or have a chat with Devoted of Sigmar himself, Ash, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter at Ash_McEwan, or you can find me in a couple of Facebook groups that Luke runs for. I think I've joined in most of the ones that I play. So Nighthaunt, Disciples of Tzeentch, Iron Jaws, and I think I was in the Cities of Sigmar one, at least for a little while there. I'm not sure if I am still, but yeah.
And Luke.
Well, first and foremost, you can find me on all the Facebook groups, especially on the big page where we've just hit 20,000 members. So that's fantastic. Biggest Age of Sigmar community in the world on any platform now. And you can find me on Twitter at DadHammondNeo, and on YouTube, Cinderful Gaming.
Yeah, and check it out in the channel description. There is a link to Luke's channel. I think I put a link to one of your lore videos. But been pumping out a whole bunch of great content.
Yeah.
A man who's also punching out great content is Liam with his bat reps. People want to find out more about Liam. They'd love his opinion on something. Where can they find you, Liam?
So I kindly did a poll recently on is pineapple and pizza any good on Twitter. So people are loving that opinion at the moment.
I was the first one to vote, and I said you were wrong.
I'm just going to go and vote right now.
Which way are you voting, Ash?
Chef's opinion here,
pizza?
No.
Yes.
All right, Luke, I'm going to shut off the stream. Luke, thanks very much for never coming back on the stream.
Yeah, pineapple and pizza every day. I'm on board.
Thanks, Ash.
Yeah.
Can I just say quickly before I say this, but so many people ordered from the buffets in EGT anything with pineapple. They even ordered extra pineapple just to piss me off.
Yep.
You guys are Satan.
I
Anyways,
just thought of a great
and
Christmas present for you, Liam.
if you give me freaking anyways, if you want to find me, I'm on YouTube, Shadowhammer, just look it up, and there's battle reps and stuff. And then I'm also on Twitter. I've been on my best behavior this year, Shadowhammer_. But if you want to actually know my true opinion, feel free to message me, because then I can actually tell you how spending one command point brings back so much goodness. So yeah, and also Facebook, the Warhammer Sydney page, and some of the WhatsApp groups. I'm currently active in the Bone Reaper group a little bit because I'm excited. And yeah, and I'm excited to see so many people and so many events like the Newcastle and Runax. Isn't that right, Anthony?
Yes.
Now, Anthony, how can people find you?
Well, if they're watching my channel, they probably know where to find me.
What about Twitter?
To be fair. No, you don't want Twitter. But I do want to take the opportunity to thank again everyone who's contributed to the channel, whether you're liking, you're commenting, you're subscribing, you are physically giving me your hard-earned dollars, or you're just sharing it with a friend. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, I'm sure the money that you are contributing right now will go to all the pineapple that we give Liam for Christmas. So maybe we use that gimbal video to show off Liam eating his delicious pineapple.
I feel like this is a CanCon challenge. How much pineapple can I eat?
You are challenging Doom in a grudge at CanCon, are you not?
I am, yes.
I hope he brings pineapple to kick your ass.
Well,
no, he's taking ogres. Because ogres will get a new book in end of November, early December.
Oh well.
So
could have been beaten up by pineapple.
But I'm sure he'll bring a pineapple and put it on the side of the table just to piss me off.
Do you reckon he'll use one of the pineapples as a gargant or something like that? That'd be good.
Oh, if he uses, I'll let him use it as a butcher or something. Be like, that pineapple is a butcher, and I'm gonna shoot the crap out of that pineapple.
Very quickly, I've unfollowed Tristan Gray, who believes that pineapple on pizza is trash. I believe that's Craig Anderson saying that pineapple on pizza is off-meta pizza. Aussie Wargamer thinks that the best pizza topping is whole basil leaves.
Now that's something I can get on board with.
Craig Anderson is also saying that coriander pizza. I don't know if he's pro or against coriander pizza. And then Tristan is all about the whole basil leaves. So
nothing beats a margarita.
Can we have an open mic episode on pineapple and pizza thoughts? I reckon that will go off. I reckon that will go off.
Well, funnily enough, there has been a request that we kick back off the Road to CanCon series. So maybe that could be a leading question that we can ask participants of where you stand on pizza. Yes. This is going completely off topic or off meta on the show topic. Guys, thank you very much. Luke, Ash, appreciate your support all the time. Liam, thanks for helping GT. I really need a new co-host.
Thanks very much for having me, guys.
Cheers for having me, guys.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you around.
Peace.
Bye.